Welcome to the Sacred Heart Share-A-Thon on the Carolina Catholic Media Network. Today, we are live on the air from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., asking for your financial support and sharing the great work of various ministries, authors, speakers, clergy, and local radio hosts that impact our local Charlotte community. Carolina Catholic Media Network is 100% listener supported, and we need your financial support to continue broadcasting the truth of Jesus Christ. Call 1-800-857-2909. That's 1-800-857-2909 to make your tax-deductible pledge. Operators are standing by right now to take your call, or you can donate online at carolinacatholicmedia.org. Thank you for your loyal listenership. We hope you enjoy this special Sacred Heart Share-A-Thon program.
My name is Bobby Mitten. I am what's called a behavior therapist. It basically means I work with kids who have behavioral disorders. I don't really have a grade necessarily, but if you calculated it, I'd say I'm like in 27th grade because I'm actually a PhD student currently. And I'll throw out a random fact about myself. Once when I was in high school, I actually was elected as a varsity captain on the track team, even though I wasn't eligible to compete in any of the meets. So I technically was a captain without actually being able to participate in any meets. All right, Pepper, I'm going to go ahead and kind of toss it over to you now that we've all kind of been introduced to the listeners and the watchers. Can you maybe start by just explaining briefly how you initially got into Fraternus when we brought it to St. Mark's?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, Jake's dad was our first commander at St. Mark's, and he did a lot of work setting up Fraternus for us and having us men really grow the brotherhood and really solid factor in that. So how did I become part of Fraternus? Well, first, let me begin by going a little bit more in detail about what Fraternus is. Fraternus is, like I said earlier, a national apostolate. We see in the world a huge need for not just young men, but men and young men needing each other to lean on, to grow in faith and be solid in virtue, because we can't do it alone. We've got to have each other. So with that being said, I was sitting in the pew one day and I was thinking to myself, I grew up doing a lot of youth group. I was very involved. I was doing things, this and that. And then, I realized that I had my own son who was in 7th grade, who St. Mark's at the time didn't have really a youth group for middle schoolers or anything like that. And I said, you know what? I really need to get my son involved like I was. And lo and behold, at the end of that mass, someone got up on the pulpit and gave an announcement about Fraternus. They explained a little bit about what it was. And they said at the end, don't just bring your sons, bring yourself too, because we need dads to come in here and be involved. And that's when it all started for me. I was like, you know what, that sounds awesome. I said yes to Jesus. And ever since then, every time I've said yes to Jesus, it hasn't gone wrong. That's for sure. So that's how I've become involved in Fraternus. And now here I am, the commander, which is, for you guys, if you're listening, that's the director and just kind of oversees everything and makes sure everything is implemented correctly. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Pepper. And thank you for touching on that key point about how really a major part of the Fraternus apostolate is that the Christian life cannot be lived alone. We're meant to be lived in community, and Fraternus has been a great asset in the parishes I've seen in building that community across the men. Jacob, I kind of want to ask you a similar question. When you first got involved in Fraternus, could you kind of give us some basic thoughts on what your original experience was, what made you get involved in the first place? Can you kind of touch on that similar kind of aspect from when you were in high school?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I originally got into Fraternus, as Captain Pepper said, that my dad was the original commander. But my dad had heard about this thing called Fraternus Ranch, which is the annual summer camp for all Fraternus members. And he dragged me and my brother to this summer camp. And I say dragged because my brother and I were two stubborn teenagers who just wanted to spend the week watching TV and hanging out with friends. And we went to this ranch, and were almost completely bought in. We met so many amazing men who were bought into this fraternity, as y'all were talking about how important it is to live out the faith with others, especially other men who are seeking to put Christ at the center of their life. And they were also just normal guys. One thing we weren't expecting, just normal guys who love to play sports, who love to hang out, but also love Christ even more. And so pretty soon after that, my dad, our pastor, and a lot of men in our parish decided to start a chapter at St. Mark's. And it was an amazing experience. It just slowly built virtue in my life through living in a brotherhood that was centered around God. I had other men for the first time in my life, my age, that were challenging me to grow closer to God. And they pushed me out of my comfort zone. And when I was, not living as I ought to in a life of virtue, in a life of Christ, they challenged me. They told me where I was slipping up, and they weren't afraid to call me out. And they pushed me to be a leader myself, to step out of my comfort zone and give talks in front of a lot of people, which was one of my biggest fears in life. And to also realize that my journey through faith is not just about me. It's about living it with others and teaching others, especially these men who are younger than me. You get to work a lot with the middle schoolers as you go through high school, and teach them what it means to be a man through your own experience. And so that was just by the end of high school, just looking back on my experience, it was the best experience I could have had, because it taught me that opposed to what the world tells me what a man is, it taught me what God says a man is. And it taught me how to live that out, because I had other men who weren't perfect, but were living that life. And so it inspired me to do the same.
Awesome, Jake. Thank you. And I'll be honest, I kind of put you on the spot. I knew the whole story about your dad bringing you and your brother kind of kicking and screaming, but that is one of my favorite fraternist stories. That one of my good friends brought him and his sons down to the Fraternus Ranch, and we'll talk about ranch in a little bit. And they came back to St. Mark's kind of on fire for bringing this new ministry to our parish from their experience at that camp. And I love that story. All right, John, I want to throw it out to you. Kind of the same question. You're a little bit different because compared to the three of us, you're actually still an active fraternist brother. You're still kind of participating as a fraternist brother. Can you tell us maybe what your initial thoughts were when you joined? What made you want to join? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you. I think one of the biggest influences for me to join Fraternus was probably attending the annual accolade ceremonies from the beginning of the school year and the end. Because my older brother Michael was he was part of Fraternus when it first started, from like sixth grade to what Jacob said about like becoming a knight. And that's probably one of the biggest like influences I had, just like seeing the brotherhood, the fraternity, watching, like being able to witness my brother's growth and like spiritually growing in virtues. So then I got the opportunity, like the blessing of being able to join at sixth grade, and from there I've been able to like recognize my friends that are going to Fraternus and myself like developing in the Catholic faith and just the brotherhood. It's a great program.
I agree, John, and I love those ceremonies we do, and I think one of the things that you kind of touched on that's a really big deal that Fraternus does is we don't treat the ministry like it's just an ongoing youth group, the way that some ministries, especially ministries that are geared toward bringing the youth into the parish and active the Christian life, we actually say to the younger men, once they reach a certain age, no, now you have a responsibility to kind of pass on what you've been given. Like your brother, he brought you involved. Your brother brought not only you, but also a lot of his younger friends. Like you and I know that a lot of your brother, there are a lot of the men active in Fraternus now were younger friends of your brother, and he kind of like got that ball rolling. And that's one thing Fraternus is really good about doing is teaching the younger men that not only do they get to participate in this, but we also challenge them that they need to grow along with it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna kind of like pause for a second. I said we were going to talk about ranch, and to some degree, ranch is partly like why I got involved. It's not exactly, but when I was first moving to North Carolina, I was looking for a parish to join, and I met up with a guy who was actually the youth minister at St. Mark's at the time. And when they decided they were bringing Fraternus to the parish, he asked me, because he knew I had been a former youth minister, to get involved in Fraternus so that there'd be another man who he knew was like actively involved in faith and actively involved in youth ministry. But I wouldn't really say like I really felt like I took Fraternus as an active ministry until the first time that I went to ranch, and I really saw the growth at the national level, this idea that we are challenging young men not only to come together, but to like disengage. There's so much going on in the world that like it's really a distraction for young men. And then we go to ranch, which is I almost say that it's like a summer camp that's also like a week-long like Catholic retreat. There's regular mass, there's regular adoration, but there's also like lake days and whitewater rafting, and there's a lot of like authentic masculine brotherhood, and that's something that I think we're slowly losing in our society. This idea that men need active brothers and like active accountability to really grow as better men. And one of the things that you kind of notice, if like for the brothers that do go to ranch and the captains that go to ranch, and even like the national staff members that go to ranch for Fraternus, that this brotherhood is being built in a very authentic, very genuine way. It's not like a forced relationship. It's genuinely people across the country from different chapters, different parishes, but even like people you don't really know from your own parish, they're challenged to go deeper into brotherhood because that's what Christ challenged us to do, to look at every other man we encounter and see him as a brother in Christ. And that's one of the beautiful things about ranch and about Fraternus in general. Now, Pepper, you mentioned earlier that you're the commander for the Fraternus chapter. You didn't mention that you're actually one of the national officers, or you might have mentioned it, I apologize. But you wouldn't be involved in this ministry necessarily if you didn't have like a personal experience that really showed you the value of this ministry. Can you give me maybe like almost like a personal witness about when you really felt on fire or felt passionate about your role in Fraternus? Pepper, can you take that?
Yeah, certainly. And Jake kind of noted on that earlier. Jake said one of his greatest fears is speaking in front of groups of people or even crowds of people. One of the experiences that I saw from Fraternus is my own son, who is now 19. As a seventh grader, we were doing a fundraiser event called Bosco Society is how you can contribute to Fraternus to help send people to ranch and inspire. And we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. And, seeing him stand up in front of a group of people, adults, brothers, sisters alike, and to be able to do that and speak from the heart, passion is like, wow, there's some real fruit to the development and as John was saying, he's looking forward to some leadership roles, which, John, you're going to get a chance to do that too, buddy. Get ready. We're going to pencil you in. And what it's called is, like, on a regular frat night, so we do three things. That's our format. We eat, play, and pray. And the prayer portion of the night, we usually watch a movie clip that is linked to one of the virtues that we're working on. And also someone gets up there and they give a talk called a King's Message. And that could be any Hawk age brother or any adult captain that is there at the frat night. And that's one of the ways that they could lead. And also leading the squad, you know, seeing the multi-generational development of faith and, you know, faith in God and confidence in God. That's really been great for me to witness. And what you see here is, you see me, I'm in my 40s, you know, raising a family, full-time work, trying to do the Lord's work at the same time. Bobby, you in your 30s, you know, strapping, handsome bachelor. Yeah. Ladies out there. And then we got Jake here, early 20s, right? You know, doing his thing, doing the college thing, evangelizing. And we got John down here, still teenaging. This just goes to show you, you know, the different, it doesn't matter the generation, God connects us all as brothers. And as far as Ranch goes this year, every year we have a theme at Ranch. This year's theme is Fraternus and Armis, and that is brother in arms, brothers in arms. And, you know, we can't do it alone. We gotta prop each other up. We gotta stay strong. We gotta be united. And that's what we do at the camp Ranch. You know, all across the country, multi-states coming together, mixing up in groups and networking and just understanding and seeing the brotherhood in a bigger level. And for those of you listening out there, this is a promotion of Fraternus and Fidelis. So right here, what you see is, you see only Fraternus members. Fidelis is the ladies' side of what we do here. They don't do as the rough and tumble games as we do during a typical frat night. They do more of arts and crafts and ladylike things. And that's what they'll do at Inspire as well. Thanks, Bobby.
No problem, Pepper. Thank you for touching on that. And I love that theme for this year's ranch, brothers in arms. And I think there's definitely some level where we are seeing that Catholic men are being forced to take a stand. We can no longer be passively Catholic in our society. We need to actively start standing up for virtuous living in a way that most people in society just aren't being challenged, especially not most men. Most men are basically being challenged to earn the most amount of money they can by working as hard as possible. But we're saying, no, we need people to learn to stand up for what does it mean to not just be virtuous yourself, but to build a virtuous society. So thank you, Pepper.
And can I chime in on that real quick, Bobby? And
yeah.
Jake, you probably have a frontline view as well. So I'm an 8th grade public school teacher, and what I'm seeing in society and what's being promoted out there in social media as what's your truth and whatnot, it's simply lies. And I see it firsthand every day. Just some percentages I'll share with you. You know, my student body where I am at my school, it's probably about 85% broken homes. Do not have their original parents there. And oftentimes it's easier for parents to just let their kids be on their social media, let them be on their devices with no restrictions whatsoever. That's what I see constantly, regularly. And me being a straight male committed to raising his family and taking care of his wife, I am almost ostracized in the environment that I work in every day. So I have to show up ready to stand my ground, ready to share some honesty. And Jake, do you see that on the college level as well? You probably have had some experiences, maybe some combative interactions with some other students that are like, nah, man, you're full of
it. Yeah, no, it's, I'm glad you bring that up. It's become so evident now that this culture is really trying to erase what it means to be a man. They're turning it into this subjective truth rather than this objective truth. And I really notice it and it's easy to get frustrated when you see this lack of masculinity in our culture today, of true masculinity, and being men of God. It's easy to get frustrated, but what I'm realizing being on the college campus and seeing such a lack of true masculinity, it's because, as you said, I mean, you kind of touched on with so many students coming from broken homes, they don't have anyone to show them what it means to be a man. We have a statistic with my organization. After doing some research, they see that 80% of people who leave the Catholic faith do so before they're 23, which means they're leaving the faith in high school and on the college campus, mainly because they realize how hard it is to pick up our cross and to follow Christ. And no one has told them, listen, life isn't going to be easy. We're supposed to follow the narrow path, and they just want to give up. And so it's just really broken my heart. And also it has made me yearn to be on the college campus more so to teach these men, what it means to be a man of God. Because as I love the hot coal analogy, right? As St. Paul said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. And they view all these men as hot coals, or coals, right? And coals, once together, apart, they won't burn very bright. But once together, they will burn very bright. And it will be, it's a crazy fire, and if we don't have anyone to be the initial spark, the initial person to imitate Christ and to show that to others and preach the gospel, no one's going to be lit on fire for the faith. And so being on a college campus, I just love being there because there's such a need for this. And why I think Fraternus is incredibly, incredibly important and why it changed my life is because at a young age where I was very impressionable by other men and was seeking to imitate other men, I had all of these men trying to teach me what it meant to be a man of God. Whereas there's such a lack of that nowadays, and you see the effects of it on college campuses and in high schools everywhere. I had these men teach me what it meant to follow Christ. And it's why I think Fraternus is so important, is because we can teach these young men what it means so that when they face these trials, when they face these crosses, they know to get their strength from their brothers and, more importantly, from Christ, and to persevere through their trials.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you, Jake. I agree with you. I really love the hot coal analogy. And it's also similar to the iron sharpened iron analogy, right? Like, men need other men to become better men. It's just the reality. It's how we were raised. It's how we evolved, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I show this. Jake has one of these, and Jake, you were saying it's very easy for people at a young age to quit. It gets tough, it gets challenging, and they just quit. And this is why we use the sword in Fraternus, is because we can't give up and we can't stop the fight. We're going to fight for our souls. We're going to fight against the devil every day. And John, your brother has one of these. Bobby has one of these. I have one of these. I'm a knight, and John, pray for you, buddy.
Hopefully
get one of these too, man. Get one of these too.
One day.
Actually, speaking of that, John, I'm kind of curious your thoughts on this. You just had 3 older men, adult men, kind of talk about how we're helping the next generation prepare for the real world, in a sense, especially as a Catholic in the real world. What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree? Like, is that one of the fruits of Fraternus, that you as a high school student feel like there are men in the ministry helping you prepare for like adulthood in general, but specifically Catholic adulthood?
I really think that Fraternus promotes, like, it really gets you ready for anything that, like, maybe your call from God. Because as like a co-captain, you would help instruct like the people that are younger than you. That's what you would do as a father, both as a priest, religious, and as like a father raising a family. So yeah, I really like what you all said about how it prepares you for the real world, and how men have to, like, the world society today is really like, it's kind of just focused on like pleasure. It's more like, I want to do what I want to do. I don't need God's help. I can just do it myself. Whatever, like you have the best car, all materialistic things. But I think Fraternus, like what Fraternus teaches really goes against the tide on that like that matter, growing in virtue, sticking together with like your brothers. So yeah.
No, thank you, John. And I really like what you're saying, that it's going against the tide. Like I see it in my work too. Like clinically speaking, there really is a growing, like just a growing amount of people struggling with mental and emotional health disorders, and really not having even like the resources or the support to really address them. And we have in this ministry really approached to the idea that we as a community, not just as men, but in general as society, we need to be better about taking care of those who are behind us and being stronger and supportive of those who are coming behind us. So thank you, John.
Well,
We are unfortunately kind of running out of time, I believe. So
Getting close. You got about 2 minutes left if you can pack in some more stuff. You guys are awesome. So thank you so much for being with us. Though I mean, we're really honored to have you guys on the air and your support. You know, if I could maybe ask you guys a question, or we just quickly go around and give us a little testimonial, especially to men for listening in your group, and those who follow Fraternus and Fidelis. Would you just give a little plug on why Catholic radio is so important, why Catholic media is so important, and why people need to support it?
Oh, absolutely. Pepper, do you want to take that first with the fact that you were actually on Catholic radio?
Yes, I have a little 2-minute segment called Keeping Catholic Real, and it's just sharing stories about the virtues that I've learned through Fraternus and getting that out there for the broader listening audience to hear. And yes, please donate to Carolina Catholic Media so we can keep them on the air. Please do so. Keep the evangelization, keep the message out there, outpouring. Yep.
I would love to say real quick, just that it's so important to support channels like this, because especially in the youth, we're so flooded with this media that is just not of God. And it's so important that we have these things, because what we fill our minds with is who we become. And so we need to fill our minds with Christ, with Catholicism. And that's why it's so important to have things like this to inspire young people and older people to live a life centered on the cross and Christ.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with what Jake and Pepper said. The world around us, in my experience, has gotten really distracting. Like, there's so much information coming from so many places that you can almost be drowned out in the noise. Like, it can become like the din of a battlefield, right? But what we need is more places, more things like Carolina Catholic Radio that give Catholic families, Catholic men, Catholic brothers something to focus on. Like even just little things like having a radio station that plays the Divine Mercy Chaplet at 3 p.m. helps remind people like me who grew up at like the height of the tech age. Hey, at 3 o'clock you should be praying your Divine Mercy Chaplet and having the Angelus at noon, and having once again, you're having these media sources is exactly kind of what the new evangelization John Paul II was talking about. It's this idea of we're going to use the growing technology, the growing media, but we're going to use it as an evangelization tool. So I beg you guys, I encourage anyone out there listening, go and look at your budget and try to find some way to help keep this ministry. And that's really what it is. It's a ministry to the Catholics in Carolina. Help keep them afloat, help keep them going, so that maybe people who aren't already actively Catholics hear a message that they haven't heard ever.
Beautiful. Well, guys, thank you so much for being with us and just sharing all about your ministry, sharing all about the amazing things you're doing, and for that awesome plug for Catholic Radio. I really do appreciate it, guys. And so what we're going to do right now is we're going to get ready for an Accountable Catholics host, Lisa Feely. She's coming up at the 4 p.m. hour. And folks, I want to remind you that, listen, we are down to the wire here. Like, we are down to the wire. There are only 2 hours left to donate during this Share-A-Thon. So please make your best gift and pray about it right now. 1-800-857-2909. 1-800-857-2909 is the number for you to call and to support us, or you can do it online with a secure donation there at carolinacatholicmedia.org. But once again, thank you to everybody from Fraternus and Fidelis, and we will take you to the network right now. I appreciate it.
Thank you. God bless, guys.
God bless.
Thank you.
You are listening to the Carolina Catholic Media Network Sacred Heart Share-A-Thon. Operators are standing by right now to take your tax-deductible pledge. Call 1-800-857-2909. That's 1-800-857-2909. Or donate online at carolinacatholicmedia.org. We now rejoin network programming already in progress.